On this edition of Ourlads Guide to the 2018 NFL Draft, we'll take a look at key young pro players from the AFC North and NFC North depth charts to help you get ready for free agency and the NFL Draft, as well as an NFL free agency update. As Ourlads Guide to the 2018 NFL Draft with Dan Shonka on the Ourlads Football Radio Network starts now. All right, it's Friday, March 16, 2018. I'm Greg DePalma. You're listening to the Ourlads Football Radio Network with Ourlads GM and National Scout Dan Shonka, where it's never too early to think about the NFL Draft. So, Dan, we're going to get into Kirk Cousins in a bit on our Vikings update, but we're going to start, first of all, it's a good opportunity to start with free agency and the AFC North by talking about the Cleveland Browns. Because before we get into some of the pro players they already have established on the team, they signed Carlos Hyde. What do you think about that, considering the whole Barkley possibility? Do you think that they're now going to target a quarterback with their first pick, and the Hyde signing is just in case they don't get Barkley at number 4, or do you think they're still even interested in Barkley?
Yeah, I think to me, the Hyde pick was, they didn't give him a lot of money, and so I think, here's a guy that's got an injury history, and he's a backup is what he is. He's a journeyman kind of guy. He could be a short-term feature guy, but if they get, they'll still go after Barkley. I think, and then now they may, decide that they want to take a quarterback at 1, but yeah. I'm telling you, the best player they better take is Barkley, because they can get, one of the 3 quarterbacks possibly with the 4th pick, you know what I mean? Or if they really had some grit, they could trade up to give a second-round pick, maybe a late second that they have, move up to the 2nd pick in the draft with New York, the Giants, and then they got 1 and 2, and they don't have to worry about it. So, yep. And I think that Gettleman be willing to, because he may end up going for a guard there to, put next to Solder. So I still think, despite a lot of crazy talk out there, nobody knows but the people in the building, and they don't even know what they want to do yet. So,
yep.
But I think that I don't know how I can turn down Barkley. He's a Hall of Fame guy, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is going to be something definitely to follow. Joe Thomas is retired. We might as well stick with Cleveland first. Joe Thomas is retired. Sean Coleman played right tackle last year. He was a very interesting story. Battled cancer, missed 2011 at Auburn. Knee injury caused them to wait his turn until last year. He's got definitely room to improve. Drango wound up playing left tackle for Thomas, but that's not his position. So they bring in Chris Hubbard, the free agent. So how do you think that's going to work out with Hubbard and with Coleman?
Well, I'll tell you, they actually also signed Donald Stevenson from the Broncos. So I think Stevenson I think Hubbard will start on the right side, and I think Stevenson will start on the left for now.
Okay.
And I don't know. It's probably an upgrade in their minds. But Hubbard was a swing guy and didn't start at Pittsburgh, but somebody got hurt. He'd, fill in for him. He's a valuable guy all along the line of scrimmage. No question about it. They gave a lot of money for that.
Sure.
And then Coleman, to me right now, is just a backup guy at right tackle. And then Stevenson has been hot and cold. He's one of those kind of guys that, and I know why Dorsey brought him in there, because he brought him into Kansas City, and then from Kansas City, Stevenson went up to Denver, and he's, which kind of tells me something. John's looking a lot more athletic ability than maybe substance. So,
okay.
But Stevenson would be, I think he's going to start out at their left tackle now that Joe retired.
All right. What now? They traded Shelton, and some people might be wondering, well, why would they do that? First round player, but they have a couple of very good young defensive tackles, don't they? Coley has been a pleasant surprise. Ogunjobi, the kid from Charlotte, that's the guy they really like, right?
Yep. Yeah, he's kind of getting better every year, and You're exactly right. He's the guy that they think that can really explode on the scene.
Yeah, of course, he didn't have a great career. A career at a big school, but for Charlotte, he was really their top athlete. He was because they've been they haven't even been around very long. So and he had a very productive career there, and he got up to a pretty good start so far as a rookie. So what about one more player before we move on from Cleveland? What about Peppers? He had an up and down rookie season, kind of struggled a little bit. You were kind of unsure yourself about exactly where he was going to fit in. So, what do you think about where he is going to fit in now that you've been able to see him 1 year in the pros?
Well, he's that wild card, big nickel, third safety kind of guy, and Greg Williams, that's what he runs, and so he's got to decide exactly where he wants to slot him, whether he wants to bring him in at linebacker at times, inside in the right. He's a valuable chess piece, is what he is, because with all the three wide receiver base formations out there anymore, you want guys that you don't have to make substitutes and things like that. And Pepper should be able to fill that bill.
And you still like him though, right? As a player, that because
yes,
okay,
yeah, he had to stick back there at Michigan. They used him all over the place, and he had to find a home, and it sounds like he has.
All right. Now, Max Williams was your top tight end in the 2015 draft as we move over to Baltimore. And, he is still so far hasn't really been able to get going. He's dealt with some injuries. Nick Boyle is another young tight end that the Ravens have, and this is a key position for Joe Flacco in the offense. So do you still think that there's hope that Max Williams could be a true number one?
Well, I tell you, you'd like to see a little more signs right now, and the thing is, sometimes if you don't use a guy, you lose a guy, and Doyle has talent, and but he's had his off the field problems with the steroids and all that type of stuff, so he's suspended, and you can't ever count on him. And Max hasn't. His dad played a long time in the pros, and his mother was a great athlete, and you feel like he would fit right in. He hasn't gained a whole ton of weight, but his hands have been a little bit inconsistent, which they never were at Minnesota. So we'll see what kind of step he takes this year. That's going to be the key, I think.
Defensively, Ozzie Newsome has had some hits and misses over the last few years. So far, some of the hits recently have included Willie Henry, Judon, and, of course, last year's cornerback Marlon Humphrey. But so far, on some of these players have not developed yet, even though there's still a lot of time for them. You got Tim Williams, you got Bowser, you got Correa, and Wormley didn't even play as much as we thought he would last year. Out of that group, Bowser, Correa, Wormley, and Williams, which one of those guys do you have a little bit more hope for in the future?
Well, I thought Wormley was going to have something there. Bowser, has some talent. Correa, he was overdrafted, in my opinion. They didn't know where to put him, and he was always an outside guy at Boise State, and had made sacks and things like that. But they put him inside, and so I think it's a learning situation for the guy where he's going to be able to find a home for him. Now, I think he did come on a little bit, but they put Onswar, who was a undrafted free agent ahead of him, who was a big safety out of Portland State.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I would expect Wormley to come on and play better this year. And, Brandon Williams, they've given him a lot of money. And then Brent Urban, they re-signed him. So they're going to have a competitive group up front. Carl Davis hadn't really set the world on fire either, and he was supposed to be a guy that they were counting on to do some things. And so anyway, we'll see what happens this next year. They got a new defensive coordinator and things, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and Tim Williams is another intriguing player from Alabama. But you basically classified him as a one-trick pony, so that means that's a guy that needs to develop a little bit more. So he needs more time, right?
Yeah, he does, but like I said, he's a pass rusher.
Yep.
And that's what he is, and he's got to develop the rest of his game.
All right, let's go to Cincinnati and the Bengals as we stick with the AFC North for now. They're waiting for another one of their young wide receivers to develop alongside AJ Green. Ross, maybe he was overdrafted because of his 40-yard dash at the combine, but he basically had a redshirt year because of the injury. Then you have Boyd, Malone, and Core, some other young guys that have been drafted the last couple of years. What do you think about that group? Is Ross clearly the guy that you think will be the one to develop, or is there someone else?
Well, excuse me, John Ross has got to get on the field. I mean, he's the guy that can stretch everything out. But Cody Core has made good strides. He's a fast guy playing special teams, and he works hard at blocking everything. Tyler Boyd isn't as fast as Core is. But he was that possession underneath, short area, intermediate type receiver that had his moments as a rookie a couple of years ago, and this is going to be his chance. With the coordinator was there, was the quarterback coach, so he knows these guys and what their talents are. But they're retooling the offensive line, and they had a lot of misses the last few years. And Paul Alexander's now down in Dallas, and so. They just got to, Cordy Glenn came in there the other day. He's going to be their left tackle now. But the receivers, they're I think it's a good group. But Ross, if Ross is able to stretch things, and the thing is, I don't know how well they vet some of these guys for injuries there because, man, Eifert's been injured so much. And then you get Ross that was injured, and you had, it seems like everybody they bring in has had some sort of weird and, nagging injuries.
All right, let's go to Pittsburgh. And with Shazier out for 2018, taking a look at their depth chart right now, do you think that they have to go out there with Bud Dupree? I mean, so far he has not developed into the player that they had hoped. So just stacking up that linebacker group, can somebody like Tyler Matakevich crack the lineup if Shazier obviously ain't going to be there next year? Is that a guy that's just going to be a special teams player, or do you think he could eventually start for the Steelers?
Well, I mean, to me, the thing, he just can't run. I mean, he can't run well, but he's got great instinct, and he's a good tackler. I mean, he's got shorter arms than you'd like to see, but he's always Johnny on the spot. I think that T.J. Watt, last year's first-round choice, could step up, some more. He made some great strides this last year. Their fronts are solid with Tuitt and Hayward in there, Hargrave. McCullers is probably going to be gone. But the linebackers, Bud Dupree has got the talent, and I tell you, Ciccarello does too. And they got most of the free agent. They ain't re-signed him yet, and he was another high motor guy that really, give you a great effort every time. So. I don't know. I think Matakevich is basically a special team backup guy. I don't think he's ever be a feature starter because, see, now, I mean, if you were playing old-time football, he'd be there, but now you're basically running a 4-2, and you got to be able to cover, and that's a real weakness for Matakevich.
The corners, by the way, just a couple of years ago, they were desperate for corners, but now all of a sudden Artie Burns has stepped up. Mike Hilton has come out of nowhere to be a solid contributor, and Cameron Sutton is a player to keep an eye on as well. He missed most of the season last year with an injury, so promising trio there. You have confidence that Hilton wasn't just a flash in the pan, 1 year, where did that come from kind of deal, and Sutton, you think he's got what it takes to also be a good contributor?
I do. At Sutton, I think that he's got a chance. He showed a lot at Tennessee when he was in college. Brian Allen was a guy that kind of came on late in his career, just kind of flashed at the end. Artie Burns has had his moments there, and he should take another step forward this year to get better. And we'll see about Hilton. I just think that whether he's in the nickel, he's not a huge guy, so we'll have to see if he's just going to, track and mirror slot type people, or is he going to be able to play an outside corner?
Let's go to the NFC North and the Chicago Bears. They've been active in free agency to try to help Mitch Trubisky, but another guy at tight end, their second-round pick last year, Adam Shaheen, didn't really play a whole lot, but that's not surprising, a Division II guy. What about his future? Do you think he's got a good future?
Yeah, I think he's a good one. I think he was, he was stunted by the coaching staff that was in there. A lot of these coaches, I'm telling you, they're not going to play young guys because their jobs are on the line every week, and a young guy make a mistake and cost them a game. That's the way they look at it.
Yep.
But Shaheen was he looked good in the preseason. He could have played more, could have developed more. They chose not to do that, and now those coaches aren't around.
All right, let's go to Detroit. And what about Teez Tabor in the secondary? Tabor is a guy that, if you take a look at last year, did not get in on a lot of action. But for a second-round draft pick, you definitely want to see him develop more in year two. Of course, there's a new coach, Matt Patricia. He's a new defensive guy. How do you think he'll fit in?
Well, the thing, remember, his stock kind of dropped a little bit in people's minds because he didn't run really well. And, he had some off-field stuff, but he didn't, everybody's saying he's a 4.4 guy and all that. And I think he ended up running 4.6s or something. And I think that they're going to see what he's made of. They brought in Deshaun Shed from Seattle. So they're going to see who's going to compete up front. I mean, that's all about, when you bring in a New England head coach, they're all about competition and see who's going to compete for that job. And if they don't do it, step up. I mean, he won't be around, but in Tabor's, he's got to focus on football instead of, any other stuff.
Yeah, it does have a lot of potential, though. There's no question about it, and we'll see whether or not he could make the coaching transition and become a much better contributor for the team. What about, are you surprised Eric Ebron never developed or still hasn't developed?
Well, he was, the thing is, he didn't have a lot of confidence when he came in. I mean, I was just stunned. He wasn't even, he some of those North Carolina guys, the other ones come in low draft choices and step it up and really play. And here he comes in as the number one draft choice and should have been a big time receiver and everything for him, but never did it. So, maybe he needs to change the scenery. And I'm telling you, sometimes, hey, you can have all your, T's crossed, your I's dotted, and a coach comes in there and can screw it all up, an assistant coach,
yep,
or a head coach. So, you just don't know. Maybe I believe he's signed somewhere else right now, so he's going to have a breath of fresh air, I guess.
Going to Green Bay, Jordy Nelson's gone. Does that open up a spot possibly for a young guy like Geronimo Allison? We've talked quite a bit about him the last couple of years. You had him at the East-West in 2016. Do you think that he's a player that deserves more time?
Yeah, as long as he's played sporadically in the preseason. He really looked good, and he's going to fit in. I think Jeff Janis for them is going to go by the wayside too, so it's going to give him more opportunity, and but Allison's got to keep his nose clean and just worry about football. He had an off the field deal too, so but he's a big guy. He's got some talent, and played as an undrafted rookie, and that's hard to do in Green Bay. So the talent is there. He's got to take another step forward.
All right. What about along the defensive front? You get a guy, the kid Adams out of Auburn, didn't get an opportunity to play much because of the foot injury last year. But could that be a player that you expect to see more of now that he's going to be healthy?
Yes, he definitely should. We'll see how he steps up his game, in a rotation. And then, let's see what Muhammad Wilkerson does too. I mean, is he going to, suck his thumb, or is he going to play like the $60 million man? You know what I mean? Step up, be a man, and play. Because if he does that, that's going to help the whole front. Mike Daniels is a terrific football player, and Kenny Clark's got to take another step up. But they'll have a heck of a rotation if Wilkerson plays his ability, Clark Daniels always does. Lowry is a high motor, great effort guy. And then, like you said, Adams, and whoever they get in the draft, because I don't know if they'll re-sign Dial or not. But no, they've got a good core there if they play to their ability.
And the linebackers, Blake Martinez had a breakout year last year. Ryan has been a steady player for them. Fackrell and Beagle. Now, Beagle was coming off the injury, but this is starting to turn into a nice young group, isn't it? Especially if Beagle and Fackrell can contribute.
Oh, absolutely. They talk about Ryan and Martinez not being able to cover as good, but they sure play the run well. But they got better covering, and Jake Ryan does a great job of stepping up and shutting things off in there. And Martinez is really, he started as a rookie, and he's done a really good job. And then if Beagle stays healthy, on the outside, he can give Clay Matthews a blow. So Fackrell, Perry, all those guys. They've got some talented linebackers, no question.
Yeah, and they also have some young DBs too that have got to start to develop as well that they drafted last year. So there's a lot of good young talent on that defense, and it's time to put it all together there and give Aaron Rodgers some help. Finally, Minnesota. Starting with Kirk Cousins, and as you know, of course, with me as a Jet fan, and I've said this on Jets Uncovered on the Ourlads Football Network, I was actually happy to see Cousins go to Minnesota. I would prefer the Jets go the young quarterback route. It seems, though, probably should be a good fit for Cousins in Minnesota. They won with I guess, with quarterbacks that probably weren't as or just as talented. Hey, it's their choice. Good fit.
Yeah, he's a real consistent guy, and they think that this could be another Denver type situation where you got a great defense, and then the quarterback just, Peyton Manning really, he was just very perfunctory. He wasn't his old self when he was there. And if Kirk Cousins can just play to what he's done the last few years, I think they really feel like that they'll be in the Super Bowl next year.
Now, they'll get Cook back and healthy, but they lose McKinnon. So let's say they go into the draft, let's say they do, and they decide we got to get a guy that's going to fill in the McKinnon role. Give me a running back that might fit in Minnesota for the McKinnon role.
Well, they've got there's most of these backs really this year coming out are bigger, stronger, downhill guys.
Okay.
That's why I think Barkley is a weapon, not, so much just a running back. But I tell you, Penny catches the ball well. If they want to go in the second round and take Rashard Penny, he probably catches the ball better than Chubb and Michelle and Johnson and, Geis. I know he, catches the ball better than those guys. So, he might be that kind of guy. Ballage catches the ball better than people think he does. But, in the fourth round, if they want to get a guy that you can count on to catch the ball, and he doesn't have 4.3 speed, but, he was one of the fastest guys at the combine, and that's Justin Jackson out of Northwestern.
That's right. One of my favorite players, Justin Jackson.
Yeah, and I tell you what, he ended up being, we got our MIT guy that does all the statistical analysis for us on the combine information. And hey, Jackson was second, of all the running backs that were there.
There you go.
He and then of course Barkley was first. Jackson did it all.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Plus he's smart. He learns.
That's right.
He's the guy that slips tackles and stuff. So. Yeah, that might be the guy who could take McKinnon's spot.
All right. By the way, Treadwell hasn't really developed yet. He was one of your top two receivers coming out in 2016. There's still time for him. So now his Cousins is there. What do you think about Treadwell as a pro?
Well, I think that's been the biggest thing. He had some talent, but he hasn't. I don't know if he's been smart enough to learn the offense where he can't get on the field. Or he's been, and then, he's dropped too many balls, and I'm really, really disappointed in him, to be honest with you, because he is not playing anywhere near what his ability it warrants. I don't know if it's lack of, compete in him, whatever it is. But he has not, stepped up to the plate. And guys like Stacy Coley, who's electric, he's played. And then, of course, Diggs, who was really a second-round draft choice, they got in the fifth as a character deal, has been just outstanding. And, of course, Thielen, a free agent, has been tremendous for him. So Treadwell's got to step up to the plate and show what he can do. And, and I don't know. It's all, I think, between the ears on him.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised Coley didn't get enough reps last year at all, but maybe he will this year. And that's a player to watch. And finally, I did want to ask you about Jaleel Johnson from your neck of the woods at Iowa. He did not get in on a lot of playing time last year for the team. Were you surprised about that? What do you think about his future?
Well, they might be counting on him this year, like Tom Johnson, if they don't re-sign him, and then Shamar Stephen. There's two free agents there, and I know they brought in Sheldon Richardson for a visit. Now, if they got Sheldon Richardson in there against next to Everson Griffin, and then Linville Joseph, they would have a really decent. I think that. I don't know if they got enough money, after the dumping all that, on Cousins to bring in Richardson. But no, I think Johnson is going to have an opportunity to start. I mean, I don't know if they'll re-sign Stevens or Tom Johnson, but both those guys are inside guys, and that's where Jaleel is at.
All right, Dan, appreciate your time as always. We will talk to you again next week when we finish these reports with the AFC and NFC East, and then we'll have our mock draft in a couple of weeks.
Super, Greg. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Dan. That's Dan Shonka. And don't forget also to enter the Mock Draft Challenge contest. Speaking of mock drafts, we have our Mock Draft Challenge contest at Ourlads. Go to the Ourlads homepage. And remember, it's a 7-round mock draft contest. Cash award to the winner of the contest. So check that out at ourlads.com. And also, again, don't forget, next week, AFC East, NFC East, and then mock draft special right now is scheduled for the 28th. We had to reschedule our Wednesday show this week. Normally our show is every Wednesday at 2. But as you can imagine, Dan is a very busy man right now at this time of year. So he's updating those depth charts like crazy and getting that guide ready, which will be out in a few weeks. So we're going to try to get him ready for the show next week, next Wednesday at 2, and then the 28th for the mock draft special. So that's all coming up here on Ourlads' Guide to the 2018 NFL Draft. And speaking of the guide, you can go to you can actually order a subscription by going to the top left corner of the Ourlads homepage, and you click the subscription page. Go there. That's where you order the Ourlads Guide, the draft guide, which will be out in the first week of April. All right, so you'll have almost a month with that guide in your possession to get ready for the draft and enjoy looking at all the scouting reports for your favorite college players entering the NFL. And we'll see you next time right here on Ourlads' Guide to the 2018 NFL Draft with Dan Shonka, where it's never too early to think about the NFL Draft.